appreciate, again, those people who fought and died for you, especially. But some of them didn't die. You need to appreciate them. But you also need to know uh, that you can do so many things to help this country. You can serve government. You can go on a city council. You can be a precinct person. You can go serve, I don't care what party you are. You can go out and do and have your uh, thoughts projected in a political arena. You can pick up a piece of trash that's on the ground and help your community do things. You can go to a government city function and speak your opinion. And those are things that, again, America, I didn't realize how many countries don't have the First Amendment or the Second Amendment, because those are two great things that, have kept this country going.
Welcome to Shaping the Basin. I'm here with Lance Lesueur. Thanks for being here.
It's a total pleasure.
Yes. Fun. I had the pleasure of interviewing your son, Austin, last year, one of my first interviews.
Cool.
So that's fun. You served in the Marine Corps.
Yes, I did, as did Austin and Lawton and my father.
Yes. So 3 generations serving in the Marine Corps.
Yes, we're here in Klamath Falls because of the Marine Corps. My dad, in Guadalcanal, was bit by a mosquito, and he the mosquito gave him filariasis. I'm probably not saying that correctly, but there was a Navy hospital at a town called Klamath Falls, Oregon, and at 5,000 feet above sea level, the parasite goes dormant. So supposedly, there's about 11,000 Marines that came through. Now, remember, they would get healthy and would then go on to their other units and all that, but they would go to the top of the hill up here in Klamath Falls and go to the Naval Hospital, and that's how we got to Klamath Falls. A very, very lucky day, April Fool's Day, 1945.
Really?
Yes.
That's funny. And then you've stayed ever since.
Well, my dad made that decision, but I was born at Klamath Valley Hospital on August 17th, 1955, and thank God for that mosquito, because this town has been very, very good to the Lesueur family.
Yeah. And then you made the choice to serve in the Marine Corps.
Yes, June 14th, 1973, my friend Steve Fessler and my friend Randy Childers and I joined on the buddy plan, and we wound up standing on the yellow footprints at MCRD San Diego. And what a great experience. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your experience. Is there a moment that really stands out to you?
How neat Klamath Falls was and how lucky we were to grow up in a town called Klamath Falls. The mills were going great guns. Everybody was pretty middle class. When you wound up standing on those yellow footprints, and again, this was at the end of Vietnam, there weren't too many middle class mothers that would let their kids go in the military. The enlisted personnel, they weren't the greatest. It was really tough to recruit in those days, and they really dropped the requirements. So because of that, boot camp was an amazing shock, seeing some of the things that, and you can read these in the magazines. I'm not going to dwell on that, or in the history books, how the new volunteer military was such a tough time until they really figure out how to do the drug testing, how they knew new officers and the new staff NCOs figured out how to do things. But it was a tough time in 1973 to about 1980. Mm-hmm. But it was definitely a shock to be in boot camp and realize that they really weren't there to love you. They were there to take you from a civilian in 3 months and make you a hard charging Marine. Quite an
Mhm.
experience.
What I think of the most difficult time of boot camp as being the physical part of it, but what was that your experience or what was the roughest?
All three of us were in great shape,
Yeah.
playing sports for Klamath Union High School. It was the mental. It
Mhm.
was you could never do anything right, and it was all planned to a finite hour. These guys were truly they they shaved your head. I didn't recognize one of my friends when he came up to me. I mean, it was impossible. And then everybody else had their head shaved, and then the mental stuff came uh, through. Like they would just mess with you. You could do everything right, and they'd still put you into a sand pit, and it. But you had a little bit of fun. They would say, "Make it rain," and you'd throw the sand in the air, and it would be like a big dust cloud, uh, and then you'd be really crummy with sand all through your body for like
Mhm.
2 days until you got your new utilities that you would have to put on. But there was a lot of mental stuff going on to break you down and then to build you up, where you would think when you got out of boot camp you would take on Red China with a teaspoon and win.
Mhm.
The only time there wasn't anything mental was on they really relaxed you in the rifle range because there was live rounds and you were dealing with
Oh.
a, a gun that you could hurt yourself with and hurt other people.
Mhm. Interesting. And then you got out of boot camp and where did you end up?
Well, they made me a forward observer, which means that I was artillery, but I walked with the infantry and called in fire over the top of the infantry and protected them. And artillery would come over and protect them. I called in 105 155 8-inch and 175 artillery. Again, only in practice, never did it in a real combat situation, thank God. But we would walk with the infantry with a big wisp antenna, which was to say, shoot me, because the bad guys really didn't like guys like me because I could do some real damage. So I went to Schools Battalion and then I checked into Camp Pendleton, the Hotel Battery, 3rd Battalion, 11th Marines.
Okay.
Stayed there for about 18 months and then got orders to Okinawa. And that's when things really got interesting. I made rank very, very quickly, but I was just not quite there for my sergeant. So in about 19 months, I was a 19-month sergeant because there were so many billets open, and if you had any of just being able to read and write, you gained rank quickly and whatever. So I checked into Okinawa. I said I need to do my sergeant stripes, and they said, "Cool. Oh yeah, you're available to be sergeant." I sewed on my sergeant stripes, and at 3 o'clock in the next morning, they said, "Wake up! You're going to Vietnam." Because
Mm.
it was the fall of Vietnam, where the North Vietnamese had followed none of the treaties that were agreed to by the Nixon administration and to get us out, to get all Americans out. They immediately started breaking the treaties, and they started having NVA, or North Vietnamese divisions, starting to come down and take over South Vietnam. Interesting thing, America said that we had to go back and stop them. There was no way once we got our troops out of Vietnam that we were going back to into that battle. America was done with the war. It had split us. America was never going to be the same. We had lost our innocence. Vietnam had changed the world amazingly. So, but we were going to have the largest armada since Okinawa off the coast of Vietnam, getting ready to take Americans out that were civilians, or just be ready just in case President Ford said, nope, we're going to stop the North Vietnamese and help out South Vietnam, our ally. Of course, that didn't happen. And so we were off the coast of Vietnam 4 to 5 months, combat pay, an interesting time, but there's nothing worse than cutting squares and with a boat, because you cut squares, and I don't think there was any worried. There was talk of submarines, but there was no Russian submarine that was going to attack. But it was just us waiting for the slow collapse of the South Vietnamese army. Again, we can go back to pictures that you've seen, but when they hit Saigon, then the craziness started. Hundreds of helicopters were starting to come that were South Vietnamese helicopters that were these guys here. If they didn't get to an American ship, they were going to be either in a communist concentration camp being reprogrammed, or they were going to be shot. So when that South Vietnamese helicopter landed on an American ship, now remember, I think there was 7 carriers there. I was on the USS Hancock, which used to be a jet carrier. It shot jets off it. They took those jets off and put United States Marine Corps helicopters on it and used it as a helicopter carrier. And so they had the Hancock, they had the Midway, they had the Constellation. And again, I'm not going to fall on the sword that these are totally correct. They had the Oriskany, they had the Kitty Hawk, and the Enterprise was in port at Subic Bay, so it wasn't there, but they had tons of carriers and tons of other ships that were accepting refugees that were coming out of South Vietnam in so many locations and I don't know where they were coming from. You've seen people in boats coming, and we were picking up refugees from South Vietnam. We were picking up refugees from other countries that had not got out soon enough. So it was an amazing time. I was attached as a forward observer with 1st Battalion, 9th Marines. And what we were attached with, and we had never fired them, and again, because we may be stopping the NVA Army, I was attached with them, and we used a thing called a 4-deuce mortar. And a 4-deuce mortar is one, they call them FO killers, because they were a mortar that shot a 105 millimeter round straight down a tube, and the plates would seat. Our artillerymen, our cannon cockers, had never fired them. And they just showed up in a crate, and all of a sudden these guys are trying to learn. Well, they were in another ship, and I was on this carrier with my company of Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, and these guys were good. These were good infantrymen, and they had a terrible name because was such a bad luck outfit in Vietnam. They called them the Walking Dead. That was an amazing outfit to join, but still, they were good infantrymen. Again, we saw they had a platoon go into the compound at the embassy, but other than that, we all stayed on the ship. And there was talk that we were going. Matter of fact, we did load up in a helicopter, and I can tell you that it was amazing. I had so much ammo on me, and I lost my radio operator, so I had to carry and it was a radio. It was called a Prick 77, and I had to have it on my back. And I was thinking, going over the water, that I could still swim with all this weight on me. Dopey 19-year-olds. But again, Gerald Ford called the helicopters back, and thank God, because the NVA division would have went through us. We would have given them maybe a 20-second fight, and then they would have went through us crazily. But again, 5 months or so, we went through. We were off the coast. When I show you the pictures, there's a picture of a lot of staging going on. The news media was there amazingly. I'm going to show you some pictures of a helicopter. This was a great media show. When we were on the ship, we lost, I believe, one helicopter. That these Marine Corps helicopter pilots, were fabulous, but they didn't get any sleep for about 3 or 4 days. And one helicopter crashed off the USS Hancock. And I think I know the 2 pilots didn't make it, and I think one of the crewmen did it, but one of the crewmen made it back out. But, I didn't see that. But it was one of those, and we did have a funeral ceremony for them, and it was amazing. It was at the end of the evacuation, and they announced the end of the evacuation. I can remember this funeral. And, you know, I didn't know those guys, but, you know, it could have been us. And so we had the funeral, and taps was played, and then the sun came out, and it happens all over the world. But bars of light came down through the clouds, and Vietnam was over. And thank God, because it was a terrible war. But we did a great job, America. And we did a lot of things. We probably stopped the domino theory. We probably stopped it. But was it worth it? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was. But those history books will be written. They will be written for the future.
It's easy to get lost. Don't know which path to take, what to post. In the social media jungle, video is king. Your kids are obsessed, your customers are addicted, we're all hooked, and social media sites prioritize videos. So when you're ready to stand out from the crowd, reach out to 40 Deuce Films. Feeling over everything.
What was it like coming home?
Oh, coming home, again, I didn't see any combat, so PTSD, but coming home was interesting because, especially Southern California, America hated you. I remember coming to the Marine Corps League, and, you know, and it was sad because, you know, the World War II veterans, very much like the people who spit on us. And again, it wasn't a couple of times it happened to me, but, you know, once was enough. But also, you would go into a bar, and some World War II, not all, some World War II guys would get up and call you a name and leave the bar because you were a Vietnam guy. That, you know, they had a tough time with the loss too, because America never lost a war. And I don't blame them for being mad. It hurt, and I've forgiven them, but it was interesting. And even the people that spit on the Marines, I've forgiven them. It was a terrible time. It really was. America was really lost in how the war was portrayed. And I do want to say this about the guys that fought in any war. If they saw combat, they're truly my heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Because the guys that supported, and my entire family, we never saw combat. I am so grateful. So grateful, because they hadn't have to deal with that PTSD. And yeah, the thought, some people can compartmentalize that. I have compartmentalized that. I have friends that have killed lots of men, and how they can compartmentalize that and not have it bother them. But most can't.
Mm-hmm.
And that terrible thing. Again, very, very lucky. And my two boys, my son came home from Afghanistan, and he led convoys for 7 months. He was the lead guy. First thing I did is, when he came in with his dress blues and surprised his mother at Roosters, I ran over and checked his ribbon, and he didn't have a combat action ribbon on. Hoorah! It was good.
Yeah.
So anyway, but no, it was tough coming home, some counseling, feeling betrayed. I had a very patriotic father, a little bit of betrayal, but I've got through those, and it was especially, and I feel like I'm such a punk because I didn't see combat, and, you know, it was hard. I had quite an honor last week, kind of a funny story, but, you know, I had a reunion with my last forward observer officer, Lieutenant Tom Dolan, and my last captain of artillery, he was a Major Tony Shepard. We went to Nashville and had a funny thing. Went to Nashville and went to the military night at the Grand Ole Opry. And of course, I found somebody, and we got announced from the stage that we hadn't seen each other in 49 years
Oh.
from the Grand Ole Opry. So I've got to do something. And we got to ask a lot of questions because, again, Major Shepard had seen combat, and I would love to send everybody his video that he's did like this, like you're doing with me, Heather. And he just said he wanted to stay alive, and he somehow did. My true hero. And Lieutenant Dolan, who made this possible, became very affluent, as we all were. And I was in New York with him at the same time. He drank the water at Camp Lejeune and has had terrible cancer.
Mm.
And we went back to see him, and he's doing much better. I mean, what totally my hero. Both of them, one for defeating cancer and, the other one for just surviving Vietnam.
Mhm.
But I talked about how, and it was in platoon, everybody was in Vietnam and in the service, and probably everybody that's been in the service, especially since the volunteers, they were there for their own selves. Because especially in Vietnam, they had the draft before. You didn't have much say, but in Vietnam, you could go to Canada, you could desert, you could do anything. There was no consequences whatsoever. And I went there because I wanted to be a patriot, and my dad really instilled that in me. Those two, as all the guys that I was in the service with, some of them, of course, there were some of them that had 4 years in prison or 4 years in the Marine Corps.
Mhm.
But in the same respect, we were there, and I was there. It caused a lot of my own problems in my head because of that patriotic father who I wouldn't trade for the world.
Mhm.
But a lot of the sting of not being accepted when I came home was that patriotism that was drilled into me, and living in this great, great town of Klamath Falls, who was like, wow, how could you not fall in love with a country like the United States of America,
Mhm.
and to discount it and not realize how lucky we were, especially growing up in a time like after us baby boomers.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a great time to grow up in the world.
Yeah. How long did you serve in the Marine Corps?
I served 4 years,
Okay.
and then afterwards I joined the National Guard, another great honor. I joined the National Guard in Klamath Falls. So I have a discharge from the Marine Corps and a discharge from the Army, and
Okay.
another proud moment in my life.
Yeah. So you got out and then came back to Klamath Falls
Yes.
and did the National Guard route.
Went to OIT. It was amazing how good your brain improves with 4 years being older. Went to OIT, got on the Dean's List. Can you imagine that? I couldn't even spell Dean's List till after and then I went to New York City. I
Mhm.
went to the College of Insurance and of New York City, and got a job on Wall Street and worked on Wall Street for 5 years. Met my wonderful wife, Bernice, who has to put up with a lot, and then came back home in 1983, bought my father out in 1984, and we've had a wonderful business in the insurance agency. And then we sold it to our two sons,
Mhm.
Lawton and Austin. Lawton runs Grants Pass. Austin, of course, runs Klamath Falls, who you're buddies with.
Yes.
And then my daughter also is involved with the sickness of insurance. She is in Fallon, Nevada,
Mm.
and she is a health insurance person for A&H Insurance of the Nevada.
Okay. You met your wife. Were you back east when you met your wife?
Yes,
So she was not from Klamath.
right. She came to Klamath Falls, and the first 7 years it was a little difficult. But when the first child was born, she realized that this is where she belonged, and what a great place to raise kids, Klamath Falls, Oregon.
Yeah. And you did not end your service to community with your military. You have gone on, I mean, you have served this community in so many ways.
I've been very lucky. Joined the Masonic Lodge. That is one. Been Shriners. Was the potentate for all of Southern Oregon and did some national, minor national jobs. I am now the president of Klamath Rental Owners, which has helped rental owners around the states with some of the things that our government does. And kind of surprised me with that one. The been some service organizations. Trying to remember them right now.
So, a bunch of them.
Yeah, a bunch of them. Yes.
I know it sounds like your dad really imparted a desire to serve in the military and be patriotic.
Right.
Did he also serve in other areas and instill that in you?
Yes. The classic saying is, the more you give, get back. And Klamath Falls, again, what a great community. The more we gave, the more Klamath Falls gave to us. And again, Klamath Falls has been, it's hard to believe this little community who so many people say so many bad things about. I just don't see it.
No.
Because it's just been wonderful to the Lesueur family. And I think that goes back to your attitude. Klamath Falls is, and I think you could do it anywhere. I've had friends come to Klamath Falls and they've had the right attitude of giving. And they say, oh, well, I got to wait for people to come and talk with me. No, baloney, you go talk with them. 99% of Klamath Fallsians talk back to you with the biggest smile on earth. And what a great community.
It really is a great community. I remember when I interviewed Austin, he shared with me how much he wanted to leave Klamath Falls and then how happy he has been to come back. Did you want to leave at any point?
Oh, sure. Yes, of course. I wanted to go in the Marine Corps and serve my country. I wanted to go away to college someplace, and I wanted to see the world. And I still want to see the world right now. Bernice and I we're very, very lucky. For the past 3 years, we've seen 4 different countries a year, and we plan to do that until we can't walk any longer. And then I'm going to hire somebody to wheelchair me around.
I love that. That's, as someone who loves to travel,
yes,
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, it is hard to believe, but we are like towards the end of our
no
time.
way.
It's crazy. So I appreciate it. I do have some questions. We're doing this as part of America's 250. So I have some questions I've been asking everybody as we get started. But being America being 250,
right?
What do you hope America remembers?
I hope America remembers, of course, the sacrifice of all the men that gave their lives, who didn't hold a grandchild, who didn't get to kiss their wife on their 25th anniversary and their 50th anniversary, and who didn't get to puff out their chests when their kid did something right. But I also hope that this country carries on and beats the record of Rome, carries on with its government. And because they say the meanest times are now, I disagree. The meanest times were now. During the Civil War, during Andrew Jackson's time, his wife committed suicide because what they said to her in the press. Or she didn't commit suicide, she gave herself an early grave of just the worry of what they said. The press has always been mean. and whatever. And we've always had terrible times. There was never a good time because we always fantasize about the past. But I do hope our government and we and the deficits or whatever, I do hope our government lasts and we continue this goofy experiment called the Republic in America, that we last for another 500 years because we're worth it. That is one. And that we have our 750th and that we are still a strong country and that we still have young people, and they don't have to serve in the military, but we still have young people that stand up and pay their taxes and say, wow, this is a pretty great place, America.
I love that. What does patriotism mean to you now versus maybe what it meant to you when you were younger? Has that changed?
Yes, it has. Patriotism when I was younger was meant that you better serve the military. And I was wrong. I really was. Patriotism is now that you believe in our Constitution. You appreciate, again, those people who fought and died for you, especially. But some of them didn't die. You need to appreciate them. But you also need to know that that you can do so many things to help this country. You can serve government. You can go on a city council. You can be a precinct person. You can go serve. I don't care what party you are. You can go out and do and have your thoughts projected in a political arena. You can pick up a piece of trash that's on the ground and help your community do things. You can go to a government city function and speak your opinion. And those are things that, again, America, I didn't realize how many countries don't have the First Amendment or the Second Amendment, because those are two great things that have kept this country going. But the First Amendment, like in some countries, you can't even say anything against the government. I mean, there's people I rail against that I think that are wrong, but I want them to be able to say it. And I think they need to get in politics, and they need to get and have their words noted in this world. Yes. And I'm so glad they can do it, at least in this country.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Last question. What makes a community worth fighting for?
Ooh. I always tell people when they have a baby, and again, our population, we don't have babies like we should. We need to have, every family needs to have 4 kids. Okay. Yeah. When a baby is born, it gives me happiness that somebody said, this world must continue. It must, because, I remember people who when I was growing up, it was my parents' generation. Oh, because of the A bomb, we decided not to have children. And then I remember my generation. Oh, because of Vietnam and the stupid politicians, we decided not to have children. And right now it's, because because of COVID, we're not going to have children. You know what? They had the Black Plague. They had the Mongols come across the wrong side, and they had Hitler. You've always got an excuse. I'm most proud of people that have children, whether it's 1, 12, or whatever, because they are not only saying that the world should continue, but they're patriotically saying for all their countries that their country should continue, and it's worth having somebody, a little child, that's going to take 18 years to raise. Well, I'm still raising Austin. He's 35, but no, but I'm joking there, but you're going to take them and you're going to mold them into something you believe in. And it may not be necessarily what I believe in, but you're going to mold them and say, here, now go in, hopefully pay your taxes, hopefully do some things extra for your country, and patriotically make sure this country continues.
Yes. I love that. Thank you so much for your time today, Lance.
And thank you for letting me. This is what I dreamed about coming home.
Oh.
At 70, it finally got here. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.